Your thoughts are not passive. They are not merely fleeting impressions trapped inside your skull. Each thought is a frequency, a vibration, a subtle force with the power to ripple outward into the hidden architecture of the universe. We've been conditioned to believe that the mind is isolated, a byproduct of a brain sealed off from the world. But quantum field theory suggests something profoundly different. A revelation that dismantles this illusion and replaces it with a much stranger truth. Your thoughts may be actively reshaping reality in real time. In this video, we're going far beyond the surface of conventional understanding. This isn't about basic manifestation techniques or watered-down motivational ideas. This is about the actual physics, the quantum field itself, and how your consciousness is in constant interaction with it. You're about to discover that what we once thought of as metaphysical is becoming a scientific frontier. The boundary between the mystical and the measurable is dissolving. We'll start by uncovering what the quantum field really is, not as a vague abstraction, but as the very foundation of existence. We'll explore the astonishing phenomena of entanglement and wave function collapse, and how these effects suggest a universe that responds to observation itself. But more importantly, we'll go one level deeper. We'll reveal how your mind, through its electromagnetic patterns and coherent thought structures, may be entangled with this field, affecting it, tuning into it, even shaping it. Later in this video, you'll encounter one surprising discovery, almost entirely hidden from the mainstream, that reveals how focused human intention has been shown to influence physical systems at a distance. Not through metaphor, but through real experimental data. It's a glimpse into something that bridges ancient wisdom with cutting-edge quantum mechanics. Throughout this journey, you'll learn how quantum field theory completely rewrites our understanding of matter, energy, and thought. You'll see how your brain isn't just a biochemical machine, but a transmitter and receiver embedded in a sea of fluctuating quantum fields. You'll encounter research into microtubules in neurons, structures that may operate at the quantum level, and how this might support a theory of mental quanta, where thoughts function as actual field configurations. And toward the end, you'll gain access to something practical. Not just knowledge, but application. You'll be given a specific practice, a quantum intention method, that aligns with the principles we explore here. This is not about wishful thinking. It's about aligning your conscious patterns with the deeper rhythms of the field itself. The old idea that thoughts become things is no longer philosophical. It may now be a quantum reality. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you may begin to question whether anything in your life is truly separate from the thoughts you think. To understand how your thoughts may be reshaping reality, you must first understand what reality itself is made of. And it's not what most people think. Reality isn't built from particles. It's built from fields, invisible, fluctuating, and ever-present. Quantum field theory, or QFT, replaces the old idea of solid particles moving through space with a deeper, more fundamental truth, that everything arises from quantum fields interacting and vibrating in highly specific ways. In this framework, every type of particle is simply a ripple, a quantized excitation in an underlying field. An electron isn't a little ball flying through space. It's a localized disturbance in the electron field. A photon is a flicker in the electromagnetic field. Even the forces of nature, like gravity and electromagnetism, emerge from fields. Reality isn't made of things. It's made of events happening in fields. These fields are not confined to one place or time. They stretch across the universe. They're dynamic, responsive, and interconnected. This is where things begin to get interesting, because if all particles are excitations of fields and fields extend across space, then something very strange must follow. Everything is already connected at the level of the field. This brings us to the first critical phenomenon, the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect reveals that the act of measurement itself changes the outcome of a system. Before observation, a particle exists in a superposition of multiple states, a cloud of probabilities, not actualities. But once observed, this cloud collapses into a definite outcome. The strange thing is, the outcome seems to depend not just on physical interaction, but on the act of conscious observation. Physicists have debated for decades what this means, but many interpretations agree. Reality doesn't settle into form until an observation is made. This leads to a deep philosophical implication. Consciousness plays a role in shaping reality. If true, then your thoughts are not internal, they're participants in the unfolding structure of the external world. Closely tied to the observer effect is a phenomenon Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance, more formally known as quantum entanglement. When two particles become entangled, they share a connection that transcends space. Change one, and the other responds instantly, even if separated by galaxies. It doesn't matter how far apart they are, the link is preserved, outside the limits of time and space. Now consider this: if particles can remain connected across the cosmos, then the fields they arise from must also be non-local. That is, they are not limited to a single position or point. They are distributed, pervasive, and capable of maintaining correlation across distances instantaneously. So when your consciousness interacts with the field, it's not interacting locally. It may be engaging with something spread out across all of space-time. This is where quantum field theory departs dramatically from classical physics. In classical physics, the world is deterministic. Objects exist in definite places, causes precede effects, and everything operates like a machine. But in QFT, existence itself is fluid, relational, and probabilistic. What exists at any moment depends on how the field is excited and how observers interact with those excitations. It's a total shift in worldview, and this shift opens the door to something revolutionary. The possibility that your mental focus, your awareness, your intention, these may not be private, isolated experiences. They may be field interactions in themselves. But QFT doesn't stop at passive interactions. It implies that the universe is constantly fluctuating at every point in space with a seething, undetectable energy, something called the quantum vacuum or zero-point field. Even in a perfect vacuum where no particles exist, the fields still fluctuate with energy. These fluctuations are not just theoretical, they've been measured through effects like the Casimir force and the Lamb shift. This zero-point field is like an ocean of potential, constantly bubbling with the possibility of new particles and events. It's the hidden backdrop of reality. And some researchers propose that this field could serve as the medium through which consciousness interacts with the physical world. If every thought produces a subtle pattern in this field, then it may act as a kind of substrate where mind and matter communicate. Traditional quantum mechanics, though powerful, never explained why particles behave the way they do. Quantum field theory fills that gap. It shows that particles emerge from something deeper, and that something deeper is precisely where consciousness may be operating. Not as a byproduct of brain chemistry, but as a field phenomenon in its own right. In this view, the brain is not the originator of consciousness, but more like a transducer, a device that tunes into field information, collapses probability waves, and produces coherent reality. The observer effect then becomes more than a curiosity. It becomes a principle of creation. Even time itself behaves differently under QFT. Events aren't simply sequenced in linear order. They're smeared across the probabilities of the field until they crystallize through interaction. This nonlinearity allows for effects that appear instantaneous, like entanglement, and open speculation on how thoughts could influence outcomes beyond the normal constraints of cause and effect. The implications are vast. If every thought, every intention, and every emotional frequency is a modulation of field patterns, then your internal world is not separate from the external one. They are reflections within the same matrix. This is not pseudoscience, it is the frontier of physics. The equations of QFT govern the behaviors of every known particle. They describe how fields interact, how energy transforms, and how form arises from formlessness. These aren't fringe ideas. They are the mathematical heart of modern physics, used in particle accelerators, quantum computing, and advanced cosmological models. So where does this leave you? It places you at the center of a vast, vibrating ocean of interconnected energy. It reframes your thoughts, not as echoes in a private mental chamber, but as forces that ripple through the field of reality. It positions your awareness as a quantum participant, not just observing but influencing, shaping, and generating. And it explains, perhaps for the first time, why intention has power. Not because of belief alone, but because belief shapes patterns. Patterns that propagate through fields. Fields that give rise to matter. And matter that becomes your experienced world. In the next part of this journey, we'll move deeper into the mysterious interface between your consciousness and these quantum fields. You'll see how biological systems, your brain and nervous system, may already be interacting with the field in real time. You'll be introduced to a concept that bridges science and thought itself, mental quanta, discrete packets of thought energy that may behave just like field excitations. It's time to rethink everything you've ever known about what it means to think, to focus, and to be aware. Because quantum field theory doesn't just describe particles. It describes you, and it suggests that your reality is being reshaped in this very moment, by the thoughts you are thinking now. You are not just a passive observer in this universe. You are a dynamic field of influence, woven into the quantum matrix that sustains all existence. The question that now demands attention is not whether consciousness affects reality, but how it does so. What is the mechanism that bridges your inner world with the fabric of the cosmos? To answer this, we must step into the fascinating realm where physics meets biology. At the center of this hidden bridge lies a subtle form of intelligence, one that science is only beginning to understand. The brain, long thought to be a biochemical organ, is far more than that. It is a living quantum system, pulsating with bioelectromagnetic energy, resonating across dimensions that traditional science has failed to recognize. Every thought you generate is accompanied by patterns of electrical activity. These aren't merely byproducts of neural firing. They form a coherent signal, a measurable frequency. EEG studies have long shown that different states of consciousness correspond to different waveforms. Alpha, theta, delta, gamma. But what these studies rarely explore is the field generated by these waves. This electromagnetic output doesn't remain locked within the skull. It radiates outward, intersecting with the quantum substrate that permeates the universe. In other words, your thoughts are not isolated, they are transmitted. Every act of focus, intention, or emotion creates a signature in the surrounding field. And this field may be far more receptive than we've ever realized. This brings us to the microcosmic realm of microtubules, tiny structures within your neurons that some theorists believe may be the key to quantum consciousness. The work of Sir Roger Penrose and Dr. Stuart Hameroff introduced a model known as orchestrated objective reduction, orchestra, or. In this framework, consciousness doesn't arise from the brain alone, it emerges from quantum vibrations occurring inside these microtubules. Microtubules are cylindrical protein structures that form part of the cytoskeleton of cells, but in neurons, they may function as quantum processors. According to the orchestra or theory, these structures are capable of maintaining quantum coherence, a state where subatomic particles remain linked in a unified wave function. This coherence may allow the brain to access quantum information in ways that defy classical explanation. Here's the radical implication. If your thoughts are not merely chemical but quantum, then each mental state represents a precise configuration within the field. Thought becomes quantized, discrete, structured, and impactful. These thought patterns, or mental quanta, may behave like other field excitations. Just as an electron is a ripple in the electron field, a focused thought may be a ripple in the consciousness field, real, structured, and causally potent. This introduces a concept that science has yet to formalize but is rapidly approaching: thought as field architecture. You are not just having thoughts, you are creating coherent patterns within a dynamic energetic medium. And the more focused the thought, the more structured the pattern. These field structures don't merely reside in your body, they interact with the environment. Research into the Global Consciousness Project, which monitors random number generators across the planet, has repeatedly shown that during moments of mass emotional intensity, whether tragic or joyful, global randomness decreases. The numbers shift toward order. The field reflects coherence. This phenomenon suggests that consciousness is not a local phenomenon. It is global, possibly even universal. It may operate through mechanisms not yet visible to our instruments, but strongly felt in their effects. When enough minds enter a state of synchronized intention, something in the field responds. And that response alters physical systems. The human body itself seems designed for such interaction. Beyond the brain, the heart produces an electromagnetic field 60 times stronger than the brain's electrical field and up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically. This field has been shown to change in response to emotional states, and may act as a tuning fork that harmonizes the rest of the body and even external field structures. What emerges from all of this is a paradigm-shattering idea. Consciousness is not inside your head, it is a non-local field process. Your mind is not bounded by your skull. It is a projection, a receiver, and a transmitter within the greater quantum matrix. Your biology is the access point. Your thoughts are the interface. This understanding also helps explain phenomena long relegated to the fringe, such as telepathy, intuition, and spontaneous insights. If thought exists in a field and the field is shared, then consciousness can leap across space, beyond the speed of light, bypassing classical causality. Minds can synchronize not through language, but through resonance. This resonance is not metaphorical, it may be literal. Field interactions are governed by frequency, amplitude, and phase. When two systems vibrate at the same frequency, they entrain. They become coherent. And coherence in a quantum field means amplified potential. The more harmonized your inner signal, the greater your influence on the outer world. One must also consider the work of Rupert Sheldrake and his concept of morphic fields, informational fields that shape biological and behavioral patterns across time and space. In this model, once a behavior or idea is introduced into the field, it becomes easier for others to access. The field stores memory. Evolution is guided not just by genes, but by collective resonance. If morphic fields exist, then each new pattern of thought you emit becomes part of a larger informational field. You are not only reshaping your own reality, you are reshaping the shared landscape of consciousness. Every mental state you create echoes outward, subtly influencing others, just as you are being influenced by the thoughts of humanity. And yet, there is more. Quantum field theory shows us that fields can superpose, interfere, and amplify. This means that thoughts, too, can combine constructively or destructively. A coherent thought aligned with a greater field flow can amplify effects. A chaotic, fragmented thought pattern may cancel itself out. This is why ancient wisdom traditions always emphasized mental discipline, not for moral reasons, but for energetic coherence. Stillness, clarity, and intention were not just virtues, they were technologies for precise field alignment. The yogis spoke of the Akashic field, an all-pervading informational space that records every vibration, every thought, every intention. Modern theorists such as Ervin Laszlo have suggested that the Akashic field may be a real phenomenon, overlapping with the zero-point field of QFT. If so, then consciousness is not just interacting with the present, it may be accessing a timeless archive of patterns, potentials, and possibilities. The mind then becomes both a key and a gatekeeper, able to access infinite configurations of reality, but only through the lens of focus and resonance. So where does this leave you? It reveals something astonishing. Your every thought is a sculptor's chisel shaping the invisible. Not metaphorically, but energetically. Every intention you set is a configuration of the field. Every belief you hold sends ripples through the substrate of existence. Every state of mind you inhabit becomes a blueprint for manifestation. In the language of physics, you are a field within fields, a complex system nested within a cosmic superfield, broadcasting your signal and receiving others constantly. You are not limited by flesh or form. You are a node of consciousness in a vast, vibrating intelligence. The bridge between you and the quantum field is already built. It always existed, but now you can walk across it with awareness. You can begin to master the patterns you project, the signals you tune into, and the frequencies you harmonize with. And once you do, reality itself begins to respond, not randomly but rhythmically. In the next phase of this journey, we'll go further into the precise mechanisms that allow your thoughts to influence reality directly. We'll uncover the secrets of quantum coherence, tunneling, and the zero-point field, revealing how your inner focus becomes an external shift. You'll also see how science has already demonstrated this interaction through experiments that most have never even heard of. Because the universe is not waiting to be changed. It is waiting to be tuned. If thoughts create measurable field configurations, the next question must be asked: what is the mechanism through which these configurations influence the outer world? What invisible architecture connects a mental impulse to physical transformation? The answer lies not in linear chains of cause and effect, but in patterns of resonance, coherence, and probability within the quantum field. At the foundation of this interaction is a principle called quantum coherence, a state in which multiple quantum systems oscillate in harmony, maintaining phase relationships across space. In coherence, the whole becomes more than the sum of its parts. Instead of isolated impulses, we see patterns, interference patterns, waveforms, and structured possibilities. When your thoughts are clear, emotionally charged, and uninterrupted by conflicting intentions, they begin to form a coherent field signature. This coherence isn't metaphorical, it's measurable. Studies in quantum biology have shown that cells use quantum coherence for energy transfer, and similar principles may apply to consciousness itself. The more coherent your mental state, the more impactful it becomes in interacting with the subtle layers of reality. Consider the mind as a tuning device. Most people are emitting scattered, discordant signals, waves that cancel each other out. But a focused mind, aligned with emotional and neurological coherence, becomes a laser. It sends a concentrated signal into the field, shaping probabilities in its path. The field doesn't respond to incoherence. It responds to alignment. This leads us into one of the most fascinating concepts in modern quantum theory: quantum tunneling. In classical terms, a particle shouldn't be able to pass through a barrier unless it has enough energy. But at the quantum level, particles don't operate according to classical logic. They exist in a state of potentiality, wave functions filled with probabilities. And under the right conditions, a particle can tunnel through a barrier without crossing it in a traditional sense. It simply appears on the other side. This is not magic. It's a verified phenomenon. What matters here is the implication. When coherence is achieved, the improbable becomes accessible. And so it is with thought. A coherent mental field can tunnel through what appears to be impossible. It can collapse a higher probability reality into manifestation, bypassing the need for physical effort or linear steps. Now consider this: what if thought operates through a form of quantum tunneling, moving past the dense obstacles of classical limitation to affect the substructure of the field directly? This would explain spontaneous shifts in external reality following intense inner focus. It would explain the uncanny timing, the sudden appearance of opportunity, the exact match to a visualized scenario. These are not random. They are tunnelings through the field's probability landscape. But for this to occur, a medium must exist, a substrate that connects intention to manifestation. In quantum physics, that medium is called the zero-point field. This is not empty space. It is a sea of infinite energy fluctuations, even at a temperature of absolute zero. Within this field, particles and antiparticles continuously arise and vanish, creating a constant backdrop of potentiality. This field is present everywhere. It is the foundation upon which quantum field theory is built. And here's where things become astonishing. Theoretical physicists have proposed that this zero-point field may contain all possible forms, all patterns, all information. It is a library of potentiality, a silent partner to the manifest universe. Thought may act as a selector within this field, not a creator in the material sense, but a navigator among probabilities. When a focused intention is released into the field, it doesn't push reality. It aligns with a frequency already encoded in the zero-point substrate. And when that alignment becomes strong enough, reality reorganizes to match the signal. Experiments with intention and random number generators offer startling evidence. In controlled settings, participants have been able to influence the output of machines designed to produce purely random sequences. Under the influence of focused thought, statistical anomalies emerge. Patterns appear where none should exist. These aren't one-time flukes. Meta-analyses covering decades of data show a small but consistent effect, statistically improbable yet undeniably present. And the effect strengthens under certain conditions: emotional engagement, clarity of purpose, and repetition, all hallmarks of coherence. This points to a mechanism that is subtle, not mechanical. A mechanism that is based not on force but on frequency. You do not force reality to bend. You attune yourself to a version of it that already exists in potential. And the field, operating through resonance, begins to reflect that tuning. This is not metaphor. It is the physics of entrainment. When two wave systems interact, the one with stronger coherence can draw the weaker into harmony. Your thoughts, when sustained and emotionally charged, act like an entraining force upon the quantum probabilities around you. It is also essential to recognize that this interaction works through superposition, the idea that every quantum system exists in multiple states until observed. Your thoughts may serve as that observer. By focusing attention, you collapse one potential reality out of the many. The field doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to consistent observation. Repeated focus becomes the measurement that collapses possibility into actuality. So how does this translate into practical influence? First, through mental coherence, clarity of thought, unity of desire, and elimination of internal contradiction. Second, through emotional charge, not random emotionality, but structured feeling aligned with intent. Emotion is the carrier wave of intention. Without it, thoughts remain static. With it, they become dynamic. Third, through belief. Not belief in a philosophical sense, but in a field-theoretic one. Belief determines the range of frequencies you are capable of accessing. If your belief filters out certain possibilities, they are excluded from your field resonance. Your expectations are the gatekeepers of your quantum interaction. This leads to a final insight. Your reality is not just a reflection of your thoughts. It is a result of their structure, frequency, and coherence. The quantum field is not judging, rewarding, or punishing. It is reflecting. And it is doing so instantly, not in the way of instant results, but in the way of instant alignment. In other words, the moment your thought becomes coherent, the field has already begun shifting. The external manifestation may take time to crystallize, but the informational signal is already active. You are always broadcasting. The only question is, what pattern are you imprinting? And just as important, what noise are you filtering out? Distraction, doubt, fear. These are not merely emotional states. They are energetic distortions. They introduce decoherence. They scramble your signal. They prevent the field from sustaining the pattern long enough to manifest. To work with the field, you must become like it, fluid, present, and vibrationally consistent. You must learn to quiet the internal chaos, not to suppress emotion, but to channel it. Coherent emotion is like a laser, intense, directed, and transformative. Incoherent emotion is like static, loud, but unfocused. Thoughts alone are not enough. Intention is the architecture, but emotion is the electricity. The most effective thought forms are those charged with conviction, feeling, and unbroken focus. These are the patterns that ripple through the zero-point matrix and restructure your reality. And when these patterns are aligned not only within the individual, but within multiple individuals simultaneously, the effect is amplified exponentially. Coherent group intention can create interference patterns powerful enough to shift entire systems. But that will be explored more deeply in a later moment. For now, understand this: the field is listening not to your words but to your waveforms, not to your desires but to your energetic alignment. Every coherent thought you sustain is writing a signature into the quantum matrix. And that signature is not static. It is active, living, and transformative. What science has discovered, and what mystics have always known, is that consciousness is not a passenger in this reality. It is a navigator. And thought, when understood as a quantum field interaction, becomes the primary mode of navigation. Your thoughts are not whispers into the void. They are commands to a living system that is responsive, intelligent, and infinite. Before quantum field theory ever emerged from the depths of modern physics, ancient civilizations had already encoded a profound understanding of the fabric of reality. Not in the language of equations or mathematical constructs, but in symbols, rituals, and sacred principles. Their knowledge was concealed in temples, inscribed in scrolls, and passed through initiatory schools. Not because it was primitive, but because it was powerful. When viewed through the lens of contemporary physics, it becomes clear that the ancients were not merely speculating. They were engaging with the quantum field through intuition, discipline, and elevated states of consciousness. And they left behind maps, hidden in plain sight for those willing to look beyond the surface. The Hermetic principle known as the all is mind stands as a timeless statement of this wisdom. In essence, it claims that the universe itself is mental, that everything observable is the projection of an underlying field of consciousness. This is not poetic metaphor. It aligns precisely with what quantum field theory now reveals. That all matter, all energy, all particles are disturbances within fields. That these fields are invisible, continuous, and permeate everything. Just as quantum physics discards the notion of particles as fundamental, the Hermetic teachings discard the illusion of separateness. They propose that all phenomena are rooted in a singular consciousness field. Thought, in this view, becomes the primary mover, not a secondary process but the generative force behind manifestation. And it goes deeper. The Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, implies a mirroring between the macrocosm and the microcosm, between the outer world and the inner realm. This is not a statement of philosophy, but of mechanics. When consciousness interacts with the quantum field, the internal state becomes entangled with external outcomes. The field reflects the vibration of the observer. Just as in entanglement, distance becomes irrelevant, and resonance becomes everything. The ancient yogis, mystics of the East, also understood this principle. Their meditative practices were designed not just for spiritual connection, but for energetic manipulation. Through intense concentration, controlled breath, and emotional stillness, they tuned their biofields into harmony with the subtle realms. They weren't guessing, they were scientists of the unseen. These practices aimed to still the fluctuations of thought. Why? Because the noise of scattered mental activity prevents the coherent interaction with the field. Only when the mind becomes silent and focused does it imprint the quantum substrate with clarity. This mirrors the requirement in modern physics for precision in measurement. The more coherent the apparatus, the more exact the outcome. The esoteric traditions of Egypt held similar understanding. The priests of the ancient temples spoke of divine resonance, the power of spoken words and symbols to affect matter. Hieroglyphs were not merely written language. They were vibrational constructs, tools for tuning consciousness. Chanting, toning, sacred geometry, these were technologies, not art forms. They engaged the field directly, altering energetic configurations through intentional frequency. And consider the ancient concept of the Akashic field, a term used in various mystical traditions to describe an omnipresent informational layer of reality. Long before quantum physicists proposed the zero-point field or vacuum fluctuations, seers described an invisible realm that stores every thought, emotion, and event, past, present, and potential. The Akashic field, much like the quantum vacuum, is not empty. It is saturated with energy, intelligence, and potential forms. It responds to intention and vibrational signature. In this way, it acts not only as a recorder of reality, but as a matrix through which reality is generated. When a coherent thought is formed with emotional charge, it doesn't just vanish, it imprints the Akashic layer. And with sustained alignment, that imprint draws a corresponding reflection into the material world. In ancient Chinese philosophy, the Tao was said to be the invisible force that flows through everything. The Tao is not a god. It is not a being. It is a field. It governs balance, rhythm, and the manifestation of form from formlessness. Its description matches almost perfectly the properties of quantum fields. Formless, responsive, yet foundational. This idea permeates the I Ching, where hexagrams represent dynamic potentialities, changing states within the field of experience. Each change reflects not randomness, but patterned response to energy. The I Ching teaches that aligned intent can synchronize with these patterns and influence outcomes, just as quantum field theory allows for shifts in probability through observation and coherence. Even the Kabbalistic tree of life, often viewed as a mystical symbol, can be interpreted as a map of consciousness interacting with layers of reality. Each sapphira represents a frequency, a vibrational state of being. The movement between them mimics transitions in quantum states, jumps between stable configurations in the multidimensional field. Across traditions, one theme repeats. Thought is not bound to the skull. It is not locked inside neurons. It is part of a larger field, and it carries influence when harmonized with higher principles. This is echoed by quantum physicist David Bohm, who described the universe as a hollow movement, a flowing whole, in which mind and matter are projections of the same deeper reality. Bohm's implicate order theory matches the ancient idea that reality unfolds from a higher realm of patterned intelligence. According to this model, everything we observe is the unfolded expression of deeper, enfolded potentials. These potentials are affected by consciousness. The wave functions are shaped by observation, and observation, in turn, is guided by intention. The field responds to precision, not randomness. And this is why ancient rituals were exacting. Symbols had to be drawn correctly. Sounds had to be vocalized at specific frequencies. Postures and timing were essential. These weren't arbitrary rules, they were calibration methods for interacting with the quantum field. Even in shamanic traditions, where no formal science existed, the same principle emerges. Through trance, rhythm, and altered states, shamans accessed what they called the spirit world, a realm of patterns, archetypes, and symbolic energies. In modern terms, this was likely the non-local field. Their tools, drums, chants, visualizations, serve to tune the mind and body to a different resonance, enabling access to information and influence across time and space. These practices were not based on belief. They were empirical, repeated, tested, and passed down over generations. And their outcomes, though interpreted through myth, consistently reflected interactions with a field responsive to mind and emotion. One rarely mentioned yet documented example emerges from ancient Tibetan teachings. Hidden in obscure texts is a reference to a technique called tulpamancy, the generation of thought forms so coherent and focused that they become perceptible by others, not as metaphor but as shared perception. A thought so concentrated it moves into shared field resonance. This practice required isolation, intense visualization, and unwavering focus, conditions that mirror the requirements for quantum coherence. Modern researchers may call it hallucination, but the parameters match field resonance. When multiple observers report witnessing the same form, emerging from a single mind, something deeper than imagination is at play. Points to a shared field, a quantum matrix being shaped by focused consciousness. This convergence of ancient wisdom and modern theory is not coincidence. It is revelation. We are rediscovering what was always known, that thought, aligned with intention and emotional power, alters the substructure of reality. Not through superstition, through field interaction. And so, the division between science and mysticism begins to dissolve. The laboratory and the temple are returning to the same source. The ancient symbols begin to glow again, this time illuminated by wave equations and non-locality. The chants of the priests resonate with the vibrations of quantum fields, and the sacred teachings long buried beneath layers of dogma now re-emerge, speaking the same language as the cutting-edge discoveries of physics. This is not regression into myth. It is the full circle of understanding, a reintegration, a remembrance. What does this mean for you? It means the techniques encoded in ancient mystery schools are not relics of the past. They are blueprints for present influence. Meditation, intention, resonance, symbols, and silence. All are tools designed to access the matrix beneath the world of appearances. The ancients knew, and now so do we. Now that the theoretical and ancient frameworks have been revealed, the question emerges with full force. How can this be used? How can a person consciously influence the quantum field that surrounds and permeates all things? The answer lies not in mechanical effort, but in resonance. Not in doing more, but in aligning deeper. Quantum field theory tells us that reality is composed not of things, but of dynamic fluctuations in invisible fields. Every experience you have, every sensation, object, and encounter is a manifestation of these underlying vibrations. And the one variable that is not passive in this equation is you. Your consciousness, when focused and coherent, interacts directly with these fields. That is not metaphor. That is the core of quantum influence. To begin harnessing this power, one must understand the nature of intention. Intention is not wishful thinking. It is not a vague hope for a better tomorrow. It is a directive force, an energetic blueprint impressed upon the quantum substrate. When formed with clarity and reinforced with emotional consistency, intention becomes a pattern that the field begins to reflect. However, scattered thought, emotional chaos, and unconscious mental loops create decoherence. The quantum field responds to clarity, not noise. In the same way that a laser cuts through steel while a flashlight diffuses energy in all directions, coherent thought focuses energy into form. This is the secret behind manifestation. It's not belief. It's not repetition. It's precision. The starting point for alignment with the field is internal stillness. A quiet mind does not mean absence of thought. It means absence of contradiction. When thoughts, emotions, and desires all point in the same direction, energy flows without distortion. This is called emotional coherence. Emotions are the frequency generators of the mind. Thoughts set direction, but emotions determine amplitude. A thought without feeling is a low-energy signal. It ripples faintly through the field. But a thought fused with elevated emotion, gratitude, certainty, love, becomes a charged frequency that the field cannot ignore. It resonates. Therefore, the first technique is this: form your intention with complete specificity. Not in language, but in felt experience. Construct a mental reality that is so detailed, so vivid, that it becomes energetically real to your system. Then, merge it with elevated emotion, not as performance, but as genuine inner chemistry. When thought and emotion converge, the field begins to bend. But intention alone is not enough. One must also maintain that resonance over time. This is why consistency matters. Every time you revisit the intention in a coherent emotional state, the signal becomes stronger. The wave amplitude increases. The probability begins to shift. And here is a critical piece. Let go of the outcome. This is not surrender. It is field compliance. The quantum field contains infinite pathways between your current state and the outcome you envision. But fixation on form restricts those pathways, collapses possibilities prematurely. The correct approach is resonance, not control. Feel the state, align with it, Release the need to dictate how it arrives. Now consider this: the human body itself is a quantum instrument. Your brain generates electromagnetic fields. Your heart radiates a powerful, coherent signal when in states of gratitude and compassion. Your nervous system processes frequencies far beyond conscious perception. These are not abstract facts, they are access points. To increase your coherence, the following practice may be applied. Begin by entering a state of stillness. Breath becomes slow, deep, rhythmic. Attention moves inward. The external world is allowed to recede. In this space, form the image of your desired outcome, not as a distant wish, but as a present tense reality. Feel it, not just emotionally but somatically. Let your body become the version of you who already experiences this reality. This is quantum alignment. Hold this state for as long as it feels natural. Then, while still immersed, radiate elevated emotions outward. Let gratitude or certainty expand through your chest, as if the outcome had already occurred. This creates what can only be called a field resonance bubble. Your entire being becomes a signal that matches the frequency of your intention. As you continue this practice over days and weeks, something begins to shift. The random noise of unconscious thought subsides. Emotional volatility decreases. Intuition increases. Opportunities emerge that feel guided. Synchronicities multiply. The external begins to reflect the internal because coherence has been achieved. However, most individuals fail to manifest not due to lack of desire, but because of decoherence. Emotional contradiction is the primary disruptor. Wanting a reality while simultaneously fearing its absence creates canceling signals. The field receives interference, not clarity. Doubt, worry, and frustration are not simply unpleasant feelings. They are field distortions. They collapse the waveforms of potential. Therefore, emotional mastery is not spiritual nicety, it is scientific necessity. To command the field, one must harmonize emotion. Another reason manifestation fails is inconsistency. One powerful meditation followed by 6 hours of anxiety resets the signal. The field does not respond to isolated effort. It reflects persistent vibration. So instead of focusing on intensity, focus on frequency. Return to the state of coherence multiple times per day. Not out of desperation, but out of calibration. Like tuning a radio, you must remain on the correct frequency to hear the broadcast. Now consider your environment. The quantum field is not localized. It responds to group resonance as well. If those around you are entrenched in low-frequency thought patterns, their fields can interfere with yours. Not through intention, but through proximity. Therefore, it is wise to create a sacred space, a physical and energetic field where coherence is supported. Silence, nature, intentional design, and frequency-based sound can reinforce this field. This is not superstition. It is quantum hygiene. There also exists a lesser-known technique called entrainment breathing. This involves synchronizing breath with intention. As you inhale, you pull energy into your body while holding your envisioned outcome in your mind. As you exhale, you radiate elevated emotion outward, sending the frequency into the field. Repeating this process amplifies the signal and stabilizes coherence. It also entrains the nervous system into parasympathetic alignment, further enhancing receptivity to quantum feedback. Beyond breathing, consider the use of symbolic activation. Symbols are compressed codes. They act as visual keys that unlock subconscious resonance. When a symbol is consistently associated with a desired state, it becomes a trigger. By placing a personal symbol in your environment, one that encapsulates your intention, you create a quantum anchor. Each time you see it, the field is reminded of your signal. The intention is reinforced without conscious effort. Another advanced method involves phase shift journaling. This is the act of writing from the state of your intended reality, as if it already exists. Not as affirmation, but as factual expression. The act of writing engages the sensorimotor cortex, linking thought to physical expression. This closes the feedback loop between mental image and material form. The more you write from the future, the more the field receives that future as the present. And finally, use the power of non-resistance. The quantum field does not operate through linear force. When you push, it pushes back. When you relax into coherence, it flows. So do not chase outcomes. Do not obsess over timelines. Let the field do what it does best. Reflect frequencies. Your role is to generate the frequency, sustain it, and remove contradiction. With time, you will notice that reality no longer feels random. Events will appear meaningful. Encounters will feel guided. Circumstances will align with increasing precision. And this is not magic. This is resonance. The field is not distant. It is not cold. It is immediate and responsive. It is waiting for you to master your signal. When you do, it will respond not because you forced it, but because you became it. Your thoughts are not passive. They are directives. Your emotions are not just reactions. They are frequencies. Your mind is not just a byproduct of the brain. It is a tuning device for reality. Harness this, and nothing remains out of reach. You are not a product of the field. You are its co-creator. If the quantum field responds to individual coherence, what happens when multiple minds synchronize? What shifts when thought no longer arises from a single point of consciousness, but from a unified collective? The answer opens an entirely new domain of potential, one where the boundaries between individual and group begin to blur, and where intention multiplies in exponential ways. Modern physics continues to confirm what mystics have long whispered. The universe is not a disconnected array of isolated particles, but a unified, entangled web of energetic fields. Every person exists not in separation, but in relationship. And within this relationship lies a secret, collective resonance. The concept of morphic resonance, proposed by biologist Rupert Sheldrake, presents a compelling idea that once a behavior or pattern is established in one part of the field, it becomes more easily replicated elsewhere. This implies that consciousness is not confined to brains, but is part of a larger informational field, a field influenced by thought, memory, emotion, and intention. Your personal transformation is never just personal. It radiates into a larger structure. When one individual enters coherence, a ripple is formed. But when many enter coherence simultaneously, the ripple becomes a wave. This is not metaphor, it is frequency amplification. The field does not measure strength by force, but by harmony. A single coherent signal, when repeated in multiple minds, creates a constructive interference pattern. The result? Amplified probability, accelerated outcomes, enhanced field responsiveness. This is the mechanism behind collective meditation and intention experiments. Groups of people focusing on the same outcome with the same elevated emotional state begin to form a quantum network. Each mind becomes a node in a larger consciousness grid. And when that grid aligns, reality begins to shift. One of the most striking demonstrations of this occurred through experiments that measured the effects of mass meditation on social indicators. During synchronized global meditations, measurable drops in crime, conflict, and disorder were recorded. Random number generators, machines designed to produce unpredictable outputs, began to produce patterns. Chaos gave way to order. Randomness gave way to coherence. This was not a result of local interference, but of field entrainment. This leads to a profound realization. You are not an island of consciousness. You are part of a planetary nervous system. When your thoughts become coherent, they link with others of similar resonance. This connection forms what can only be called a morphic lattice, an invisible but tangible structure through which intention travels. This lattice functions like a tuning system. As more individuals hold a specific intention, be it healing, peace, abundance, or transformation, that frequency becomes easier to access. Others begin to tap into it subconsciously. The collective field begins to guide behavior, perception, and experience. Not through coercion, but through entrainment. Quantum entrainment is the process by which two or more systems begin to oscillate in harmony when exposed to the same frequency. In human terms, this means thoughts, emotions, and even biological rhythms start to synchronize. When people meditate together, their heart rates begin to align. Their brain waves begin to mirror one another. Even their breathing patterns synchronize. This is not psychological. It is quantum. When this synchronization happens with shared intention, the field begins to respond in magnified ways. Intentions become more potent. Manifestations accelerate. Reality becomes more fluid. This is the hidden power of collective coherence. It reshapes the probability field faster than isolated effort. But collective coherence is not automatic. It requires a shared energetic baseline. Fear, division, and emotional chaos create dissonance in the field. These dissonant frequencies cancel each other out, scattering the signal. That is why most collective efforts fail. Not because the field is unresponsive, but because the signal is fragmented. To create effective collective influence, the group must align on three levels: clarity of intention, emotional coherence, and rhythmic synchronization. These are not esoteric ideas. They are energetic principles. Clarity of intention means the group must define its outcome with absolute specificity. Vague hopes do not generate coherent fields. The more defined the desired state, the more coherent the signal. Emotional coherence requires that participants generate the same elevated feeling at the same time. Gratitude, compassion, certainty, or joy. These are not just pleasant feelings. They are electromagnetic harmonics that shape the field. Rhythmic synchronization involves aligning the group in real time through breath, sound, or movement. This links the biological rhythms of participants, amplifying coherence and opening the channel for quantum entrainment. When all three are present, the field begins to respond. Changes occur not just in personal experience, but in the external world. Events align, opportunities appear, resistance fades. It is as if the field itself is listening, and now it hears clearly. There is a rarely discussed technique known as coherence triangulation, in which three or more individuals focus on the same intention while maintaining open awareness of each other's presence. Not physically, but energetically. This triangular structure stabilizes the signal, preventing decoherence. It acts as a quantum stabilizer, a resonant geometry in the collective field. Another method involves sequential resonance transmission. In this practice, each participant sends their intention to another member of the group in sequence. This creates a circuit of intention, an energetic echo chamber where each thought reinforces the next. The field becomes charged, and the signal expands beyond the sum of its parts. These techniques are not widespread because they require a level of discipline and inner mastery that few practice. But for those who understand, they represent tools of transformation unlike anything known in classical paradigms. Now consider the planetary field. The Earth itself generates electromagnetic frequencies. The Schumann resonance, for instance, pulses at roughly 7.83 Hz, similar to the alpha brainwave state. This suggests a deep link between the human nervous system and the planetary field. When groups synchronize in this frequency range, they are not just connecting with each other, they are tuning into Earth itself. This opens the possibility that large-scale collective coherence can influence not just social behavior, but geological, atmospheric, and biological processes. Reality is not static. It is responsive. And when collective consciousness shifts, the planet listens. There is an ancient teaching that says, "Where two or more are gathered, there I am in the midst." This may not refer to a deity, but to the quantum field itself. Consciousness, unified in coherence, becomes a channel for universal intelligence. This is the secret power of group intention rituals, long practiced in mystical traditions. Chanting, synchronized movement, sacred geometry, all of these were tools for aligning minds into coherent fields. Not for worship, but for reality shaping. And this is where modern science and ancient wisdom converge. Quantum field theory shows us the mechanics. Mystical systems show us the practices. And your mind is the bridge. So what can be done? Begin by forming a coherence circle. This can be physical or virtual. A small group of individuals committed to specific intentions. Use structured meditation, breathwork, or sound to synchronize. Align emotionally. Define your outcomes. Then radiate them into the field, not as desire, but as presence. Do this repeatedly, and the results will begin to compound. Over time, your group becomes a node in the planetary grid. Other groups begin to link. A network forms. The field begins to stabilize at higher frequencies. And slowly, quietly, a new version of reality begins to unfold. Not through revolution, not through ideology, but through resonance. The age of isolated intention is ending. The next phase is quantum collectivity. You are not meant to do this alone. Consciousness is a shared medium. And when minds unite in coherence, the quantum field opens in ways the individual cannot reach alone. This is not fantasy. This is field dynamics. The universe is not waiting to be changed. It is waiting to be tuned. And now the tools are in your hands. You have now seen the mechanics, the mystery, and the message. Quantum field theory is no longer just a subject of theoretical physics. It has become a key that unlocks the invisible architecture of your life. Your thoughts are not passive phenomena. They are events, quantum events, that interact with the very substance of reality itself. And every signal you send, every intention you form, is recorded in the field as a potential that may become an experience. But knowledge, even of the most profound nature, means little unless it is applied. So here is your challenge, simple yet powerful. For the next 7 days, become the observer and the participant. Become the field and the signal. For 7 days, initiate a conscious experiment. The quantum intention practice. This is not theory. It is your direct encounter with the field. No guru is required. No complex system is necessary. Only focus, coherence, and consistency. Here is how it works. Choose one intention. Just one. Let it be clear, measurable, and emotionally meaningful. It could be related to health, relationships, creativity, clarity, or synchronicity. But it must be precise enough that you would know when it manifests. Now, each morning, before engaging with the world, enter a space of inner stillness. This is not a ritual of effort. It is a tuning of awareness. Close your eyes. Breathe into the center of your chest. Shift from thought to feeling. Let the intention rise, not as desire, but as already done. Not as hope, but as presence. Feel it in detail, as if the field has already rearranged itself to reflect this new state. Do not beg. Do not question. Simply radiate. Thoughts are weak without emotion. But when thought is fused with elevated feeling, it becomes coherent, and coherence is the code the quantum field understands. Sustain this feeling for at least 5 minutes. That's all. 5 minutes of pure signal. No distraction. No doubt. 5 minutes where you are no longer a separate observer, but the cause of quantum reconfiguration. Then release it. Carry on with your day. But remain open. The key is non-attachment and heightened awareness. The moment you try to force it, you introduce resistance. The moment you let go while remaining receptive, the field begins its work. Repeat this daily for 7 days. Track what happens, not just the external results, but the internal shifts. Pay attention to synchronicities, dreams, sensations, and emotional feedback. These are signs of field alignment. They are signals that the wave function is reorienting itself around your coherent input. Now here's what separates those who manifest from those who don't. The field does not respond to wishful thinking. It does not respond to fragmented intention. It responds to stability, mental, emotional, and energetic. If your thoughts contradict your feelings, or your emotions fluctuate wildly, you create decoherence. The signal collapses. The field returns to noise. That is why most people fail. They hold a thought for a few seconds, then return to habitual fear. They feel excitement in one moment and doubt in the next. This internal dissonance acts like static, distorting the signal. And in the quantum realm, clarity equals influence. But now you know better. You have seen how quantum fields behave. You understand how coherence stabilizes probability. You have glimpsed the mechanics of consciousness interaction. And that knowledge is power if you use it. This practice is not a gimmick. It is a training ground. Each day you engage the field with coherent intent, you deepen the groove. You make it easier to generate the state. You become more signal, less noise. And eventually, the field begins to respond not sporadically, but consistently. Reality bends, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. Now, as you continue your journey, consider this. The reality you are experiencing right now is not fixed. It is not final. It is one possibility among infinite configurations. It is a field pattern, sustained by attention, belief, and resonance. Change any of these and the pattern dissolves. A new one emerges. But you must become the initiator. The field is intelligent. It is aware, but it does not impose. It awaits coherence. It responds to clarity. It magnifies what you are, not what you want, but what you consistently broadcast through thought and emotion. So the question becomes, what are you broadcasting? Pause now and reflect. Are you emitting scarcity or abundance? Fear or trust? Fragmentation or wholeness? Because the field is not judging. It is reflecting, and the mirror is perfect. Let this moment be a reset. Let this moment be the line in the sand where you reclaim your creative authority. Not through struggle, not through striving, but through stillness, awareness, and the understanding that the real work is energetic. You are not here to react to reality. You are here to shape it. And if you choose to continue exploring this path, deeper revelations await. Upcoming content will unpack specific layers of this quantum framework. You will discover how brainwave states influence field coupling, how ancient energy centers in the body function as quantum transmitters, how your very DNA may be encoding and decoding information from the field in real time. There is so much more, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be remembered. But for now, the invitation is simple. Engage with the 7-day practice. One clear intention. 5 minutes per day. Full coherence. Complete release. And when results begin to emerge, share them. This is not just a solitary path. You are part of a larger quantum experiment. Your results inform the field. Your experience adds to the collective data. Post in the comments what you noticed, felt, or experienced. You may be surprised how many others are seeing the same patterns. This is how the morphic lattice grows. This is how resonance spreads. Not through theory, but through practice. Not through teaching, but through embodiment. As we close this transmission, let one final truth echo in your awareness. You are not observing the universe. You are participating in its creation. Each thought is a thread. Each emotion is a frequency. Each intention is a command. And now you know how to wield them. The field awaits your signal.